This is a Blue Rush breakdown.
All right, Giants fans, in this week's Blue Rush position breakdown, we're going to stay on the defensive side of the football. Last week, it was all about the linebackers. So let's break down the back end of the Giants defense, the secondary. Now, it's clear that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll made upgrading the secondary a major priority this offseason by not only firing and hiring new secondary coaches, but they went out and they signed Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland to pair up with Deonte Banks, Drew Phillips, and Tyler Nubin. If we're going to talk DBs, I got to bring in a DB. 13-year NFL vet, Super Bowl champ, and CBS analyst Jason McCourty is on now for your Blue Rush position breakdown. Let's get into some DB talk, man. You know, I'm a former receiver. You're a DB. It's like Lions versus Hyenas. Just, some of the oldest beef ever.
Always.
What do you think about the Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland signings in free agency? Joe Schoen went out there and spent $99 million on two players. What's those guys' expectations now?
Well, I'll say I'm biased towards Javon Holland. I was in Miami his rookie year when we drafted him there, and he came in from Oregon, and this was a guy that played in the slot a little bit in college. He can cover, he can play in the deep part of the field, and he's coming off what I would say is a rough year with the Miami Dolphins. I think there was a lot going on with contract talk and figuring that out. He's had three different defensive coordinators since he's been there in Miami. But to me, he's a guy that brings leadership, became a captain in his second year there. And he's a guy from a free safety standpoint can get to anywhere you need him to get on the football field. A willing tackler can come up and make those touchdown saving tackles. So you look at where they were a year ago, and Jason Pinnock played really well for them and kind of a jack of all trades of what he was able to do. But now you upgrade that position, you bring in a Javon Holland with the way Tyler Nubin played last year and that strong safety spot. Now you have a safety tandem that is young. These guys are all under 25 that can continue to grow together and build chemistry on and off the field. And I think Paulson Adebo, what he was able to do with the New Orleans Saints, now he's coming off an injury that you're going to have to see where his health is and all of that. And the biggest question mark will be, all right, now you're going to be quarterback one. There's a good chance that he may be shadowing the best receiver on the other team. That's a different type of adjustment than when you're there in New Orleans and Marshawn Lattimore's there and a lot more of the guys. But Paulson Adebo, I love his game. He can press you. He can play off. He can play zone. I think he's a guy that not a lot of people have raved about and talked about, but you can tell from the contract that this is a guy that's been balling and can cover people up. And then I'm biased as a cornerback. If you can play man-to-man, we can figure the rest out. You need guys in the fourth quarter when the game's on the line that can, hey, you got that cat and you got to shut him down, and he's a guy that can do it. So I definitely think they upgraded their secondary to the point where they were in games last year. I remember them playing the Baltimore Ravens. Their entire secondary was completely depleted. They were picking guys up off practice squads and rolling them out there to go out there and try to compete.
Yeah, I'll break it down. Paulson Adebo's tape. 6'1", long, can run, likes to be physical. And I think the biggest thing that he does, which I love, he can catch the football. A lot of DBs, greatest athletes. You guys are the greatest athletes out there.
Thank you for saying that.
But a lot of y'all have stones for hands, and it's like 50 million pass breakups, 2 picks. But this is the guy that's going to catch that football. The Giants lack turnovers, especially in that secondary position. So I'm with you, man. That was an instant upgrade. Bringing him in, you have him on the other side of Deonte Banks, who was drafted in the first round 2 years ago. He had himself a solid first season with Wink Martindale as his defensive coordinator, but he didn't really play up to his own standards in year 2 under a Shane Bowen-led defense. They signed Adebo. I guess this is like a 3-part question. You think that now that Adebo's there, is Banks primed for a breakout season? And then what advice would you give him after everything he went through last year, the ups and downs of that season, being benched, I'm struggling against some teams, wide receiver ones. What advice would you give him going into year 3? Because you can see on this Instagram, young boy's been working.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, the nature of our position, everybody always says it's short-term memory because no matter how good you are, you're going to go out there and you're going to get beat and a guy's going to make passes. So for him, it's forget about last year. Like, that's over with. And I think the addition of Paulson Adebo actually takes a ton of pressure off of Deonte Banks because since he's arrived with the New York Giants, he's been asked to follow and cover number one receivers. I tell people all the time, like that is one of the hardest jobs to do in the NFL. No matter how good you are, when you're lined up against a guy that's going to get 15 to 20 targets a game, you can go out there and play lights out football and have 6 plays where you just lost a rep. And those could end up 6 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like that is a job that is so demanding mentally as much as it is physically. So getting a guy like Adebo that may follow the best receiver, and this would allow Banks to go cover the second best receiver on the team, is going to help tremendously. So when you talk about a breakout season, he has a great opportunity to do so. And now it's just about mentally getting back in and saying, the hell with last year. Like I know what I'm capable of. I know my abilities, and getting back to the root of everything of where you went wrong last year, because I covered their game in Seattle where he followed DK Metcalf and he had one hell of a game. So it's stringing those consistent performances together and trying not to have that roller coaster where you're going up and down.
But do you feel slighted that they brought in a Paulson Adebo?
Absolutely.
And like everybody just automatically saying Adebo's CB1, and then kind of Banks, you got to work your way. I'm a former first-round pick. So do you feel, if you're Tay Banks, do you feel slighted in a way? Is it motivation? Like, what's that thought process?
Oh, absolutely. Hell yeah. I'm in the lab all off season with that on the back of my mind. Like these jokers don't think that I can be that guy, and I'm going to show them this year. And I think what comes with that motivation and that being pissed off is self-awareness. So you can look in the mirror and turn on the tape and say, you know what? My play wasn't up to the standard that I expected to be. And that's why they felt like they had to go out and get somebody. But that doesn't stop me from going out there and doing it that next year. I had a veteran when I first came in the league, Chris Hope, used to say to me all the time when I first got drafted there, J-Mac, it don't matter if you ball out in year 1 or year 2. Nobody cares. That payday ain't coming yet. Year 3, year 4, that's when you want to be at your absolute best, because now you can go out there and show 32 teams what you're capable of doing. And that's going to be the prime time for someone to say to you, hey, he had a good season. We think he's still growing. And now for Tay Banks, you may end up, maybe it's not with the Giants or wherever the case may be in a few years, where somebody's paying you now to go be a number one. And there may be a young corner on that team who was drafted high that struggled a little bit. And your story is going to help inspire that kid to what you've been able to work through and get to where you are.
Isn't it crazy how the league is like the circle of life? Like it's just it's absolutely crazy.
Lessons,
we go through our own like life cycles with everyone's careers, and everyone's career is different. Some guys play longer than the others. But to wrap this up, and let's look at this thing as a whole. When you look at this revamped Giants secondary, as we're calling it on paper right now, you got Holland at free, Tyler Nubin in his second year at strong, Drew Phillips at the nickel, and then you got Tay Banks and Adebo on the outside. Is this a secondary on paper right now that can handle the receiving cores of the NFC East?
I believe so. And I think the reason I say that is I would always say the secondary. I remember I was in Cleveland for a year, and I remember when Myles Garrett, we drafted him, he was hurt, and he came out there, and we watched him rush the first time. We were like, damn, like that's going to help us tremendously. You look at this Giants team, Dexter Lawrence is going to be back healthy. Brian Burns is going to be there in year 2 in this system. Kayvon Thibodeau should be healthy this year. You're going to have guys that can get after the quarterback. So now if you're able to build in that secondary, of course you're going to feel as though you can go out there and compete against the Terry McLaurins and Deebo Samuels, the CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, because you're going to be able to have some pass rush to go along with covering guys up. I look at the time period of right now when they start off-season workouts from April to the beginning of September is going to be the most crucial time for this secondary, because you just mentioned that the names, there's 2 brand new names in this secondary, 2 guys that now have to learn the system. And for a guy like Javon Holland, you have to learn it in a sense to where you're teaching it, because now you're the quarterback out there on the defense. How are they able to gel over the next couple of months, the relationships and the bonds that they're able to build so that they're a strong unit together and you're able to work through problems out there in the secondary? Because that's the biggest thing. Doesn't matter individually how good any one guy is how they work collectively as a unit.
Oh, so that's what y'all DBs do in y'all's meeting rooms. It's with the long towels, always doing seat belts and this, and the ball was thrown into the
You still hate it. You still hate it.
It's unreal sometimes, man. But like I tell people all the time, it's lions versus hyenas good on good, iron sharpens iron. Anytime there's one-on-ones or DBs and receivers go back and forth, we know what's at stake because we're going to be going up against the Revises, the Jason McCourtys. You guys are going to be going up against the Mike Evans, the CeeDee Lambs. So we got to get good. Jay, I appreciate you hopping on with this, man, and taking the time, man. Have a great rest of your offseason, bro.
Yes, sir. You too, man. I'll be seeing you.